I'd like to call this Monday, June 12th, board meeting to order. Mr. Roberts, will you please call roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Present.
Mr. Butler?
Here.
Mr. George?
Here.
Mr. Kruger?
Present.
Ms. Talley?
Here.
Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance. Okay, do we have any additions or deletions from the agenda?
We do not.
We do not. I'm going to need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I will second.
Mr. Roberts?
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes. All right, motion passes 5-0. We're going to move straight into presentations. And the presentation is for the Canal Winchester Business Advisory Council. Kristen Ankrum, come on up.
All right, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. Just presenting on our Business Advisory Council plan. We have in the past worked under the ESC of Central Ohio and their Business Advisory Council. What we have learned really over the last year is that our story isn't being told the best way by doing it that way. So we really want to be able to position the district, one, for funding, to be able to tell our story better, but also just be able to tell our story and share our work with others. So some of the reasons are highlighted here with the Ohio budget highlights. Obviously, none of this is set in stone yet, but there are business advisory incentive funds, so payments up to $50,000 each fiscal year to business advisory councils that are high quality. So our plan, which I believe you all received, kind of highlights how we are going to meet those quality standards, or how we already have. Financially support, reimburse, and incentivize preparing students for futures. $50 to school districts for each student who earn that. In addition, it really sets us up more for competitive grants to build on these programs. So that's really our why we're kind of pulling away from the ESC of Central Ohio and having our own Business Advisory Council. We've been meeting anyway on our own, even though we've fallen under the ESC, and I'll continue to go to the ESC's Business Advisory Council meetings too. A lot of networking and resources there, so we'll continue to do that. So we've identified the purpose and roles of a Business Advisory Council, and these are really aligned with the state and what they want. So just those highlighted words: advise, advocate, support, and provide. It's really what we need our Business Advisory Council to do. And our current Business Advisory Council members have we've been through this, we've worked through this, and talked through all of this as well. We started with just kind of a steering committee, and those are folks that have been coming. They're committed, they provide a lot of value, and we can add to that as well, but this main core group meets quarterly. All of our CTE pathways have to have their own Business Advisory Council, and those meet 2 times a year. Sandy Thomaschek has her own for her Cisco Academy. Our engineering pathway has kind of joined forces with the Career Center onto theirs. With our close proximity, it's not realistic to ask businesses to come to 2 different meetings when we could really just join forces with them. Our Our biomed pathway is doing the same thing, I believe, with Pickerington North. And our business pathway, we're just going to go ahead and include in our business advisory council just because it would be the same folks. We also have work groups, so these are kind of our call to action. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, industry needs, developing skill, post-grad supports, training, things like that maybe somebody doesn't want to come to a meeting quarterly, but they do want to be involved in a certain area. So this just kind of allows them to still be involved but not have to attend all the meetings. And those work groups can change based on need. We can add, we can take away, whatever works. And then we do our annual business luncheon, where we kind of bring everybody together and just kind of update them on what we've done throughout the year, or what we plan to do in the upcoming year. We typically have that in September or October, so we'll send that information out as we get it, but that's kind of when we bring everybody together, and it's usually pretty awesome. So these are the 3 quality practices that ODE has put into place for the Business Advisory Council. So develop professional skills for future careers, build partnerships, and coordinate experiences. We know we've been doing that stuff, so being able to really put it all on paper was good for me to be able to think about also what we want to do down the road. So we pulled information from each building on what they're doing related to the Career Connections framework that ODE has put out to us. Just some goals and highlights for 2023, 2024. Implement those work groups. I meant to do that before the end of the year, but it got away from me. So hopefully get those scheduled for August. Utilizing school links, an additional resource. Creating the Portrait of a Graduate curriculum for career readiness, being really intentional about how we include that into our Portrait of a Graduate period. Looking at the Career Connections framework at the elementary and middle schools and filling in gaps as needed. We want to add credentials to the biomed pathway, so researching ways that we can have those students earn their state-tested nursing assistant while they're in that pathway. Implementing bus to business and manufacturing mentoring programs at the high school. We have a local partner, Manifold and Failer, who really already does this, but we are going to be working with the Department of Commerce on making it an official mentoring manufacturing mentoring program. And then the bus to business concept is really kind of like taking our students to different businesses in our community. If they don't know that it's there, then they don't know it's there. So it's just showing different ways. And I would also like to find a way to be able to do that with educators, to have them see these businesses as well, so that they can have these conversations with students that they see every day. Unfortunately, I don't get to see the students all the time. So it would be great if teachers could kind of see that as well. Implementation of the Shaping Futures program at the high school, which I'm super excited about. This program is partnering with Creating Central Ohio Futures. They have an adult program that is really a curriculum that adults go through to get into an apprenticeship program. So they have adjusted the curriculum. It's already a registered pre-apprenticeship with the state of Ohio. So completing this program, students would be connected with a union apprenticeship upon completion, and also earn a 12-point industry credential. So that would help them meet the graduation requirement as well. So we're really looking at juniors and seniors who are at risk for not graduating and are going to need an alternative pathway. Again, building the School Links database for partnerships and student connection, and working with Megan to build a Business Advisory Council website where all these resources will be hubbed and easily accessible. And that's it. Questions?
So I have a couple of questions. So in the credit, in order to get credit back, the hours have to be defined as work-based learning hours. So how is that defined? So if we're going to try to take advantage of that, how do we know for sure?
So in our career tech pathways, 12% of the students have to complete 250 hours of work-based learning. So that would meet that requirement. Work-based learning can be an internship. It doesn't have to be a registered pre-apprenticeship. It doesn't have to be in our career tech pathways. I don't believe. I think it can just be, it could be an internship, it could be any longer term throughout the school. It really would need to be throughout the school year to be able to get those hours. We did get, we had 2 students complete a registered pre-apprenticeship at NIFCO this year. So they each completed the 250 hours and earned their pre-apprenticeship industry credential. Neither of them needed it, but they still earned it. So the goal is to really, especially with that Shaping Futures program, to reach out to those students who aren't going to college and are really at risk for not graduating, so that they can have a career with, good pay and be able to provide for themselves and families at some point down the road. So it can be other things, though.
Okay.
It's just a matter of figuring it out. So we have a student next year who wants to go to the elementary schools, and if she can do 250 hours of that and we can document it and she does an evaluation and all the paperwork that goes with it, then we can say that that's work-based learning hours.
Okay. There's also, I saw on the first slide, a $1,250 credit for qualifying credentials. So for the students that get those qualifying credentials, that $1,250 credit comes back to the school. So how are we allocating those funds? Will those funds go back into the program that provided the credentialing education? How is that?
I don't think that's my decision to make.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Ideally, that would go back into the program so that we can build and create and do more of this. There may be costs that come with that, whatever their certification is.
Right.
So I'm sure it would cover that. I think it would just depend.
Okay.
I can say we currently use career tech funds to pay for the credential tests, and then
Right.
we report it to the state, and then it comes back into the foundation funding. Never really, I mean, we see it, but it's not like it. I mean, if we needed it to go back into career tech funds, we every year too.
Okay, thank you. And then last question, so the BAC website, are we going to make that part of the district website, or is it going to be a standalone? It'll be part of the district website? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
The students that go to Eastern Career Center, would they qualify since this is their home school?
I don't believe so.
Meeting the obligation, meeting the expectation for the $1,000 student,
I mean, we
for the
currently
250 hours?
Yeah, that has nothing really to do with having the advisory council, that's all for the, I mean, we already have been reporting it and getting that funding back every year. So Eastland Fairfield reports it, and it would go back for them as well, because they take those credential tests.
But are the student, am I reading this right, are the students getting a scholarship for completing the 250 hours? Okay, no, it's just, they're just getting credit for doing it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Akram, for coming and sharing on this
problem.
topic. I do have a couple of questions as well. Your goals for the 2023-2024 school year, overall, the Business Advisory Council plan seems pretty ambitious. And looking at those goals, is it pretty reasonable to expect to meet all of those next year? Or is that something like establishing like a framework to build upon and maybe?
So honestly, most of it we're already doing.
Okay, good.
So I think it might be ambitious, but most of the stuff that was already in the plan and reported out is work that we're already doing. So it's just a matter of really looking at where we have gaps and where we need to build things throughout the district. The high school, obviously, it's that programming to help students meet, the graduation requirement. Like that's something that we are lacking. We have Rise Up, but that's really the only thing that we have that students can earn a credential in. So this would actually be amazing. So that's a big one. The other ones are just kind of small little projects, I think, in my mind that we can at least research or make happen.
Okay. And then moving forward, I assume that you are moving forward within the context of the CW promise as well, because I see
Yes.
some overlap in
Yes.
there. So that's some good stuff in
Yes,
there.
absolutely.
And my last question had to do with the 2023 business survey results. Were you surprised at what the data shows? Like personally, I can understand there might be some need to pursue, like the competency area, problem solving and communication. But then it was kind of, surprising to me that there were, like, I guess the business partners reported that there was a need for workers to be more self-motivated, self-disciplined. There were issues with work ethic, attendance, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So is that directly tied to the social, emotional learning components that the school?
I think so. I wasn't surprised by it, but that's because I spend most of my time having these conversations with business partners and what their needs are. I think what it did provide us was just validation that we do need to work a little bit more intentionally to do those things and to, throughout the day, not just like a specific career class or conversation, but like throughout our day at the school and our year. What did surprise me was how low mental health needs were. But when I kind of thought through that a little bit more, I still don't think people in general understand how mental health impacts work performance. So that surprised me a little, but that was about the only thing that was a shock to me.
Okay. Great insight.
Clarify, the survey results were not specific to our students that have been
No,
placed in
no.
the businesses. That's how the business
Just their
feels as
workforce. Like those are the issues of their workforce, so not specifically our students.
Okay.
Just
Well,
like,
their workforce.
yes,
Not our students working.
not
with it.
specifically our students, but just the workforce in general. Yeah, thank you, Kaya.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kristen. Next presentation is CWEA. We may not have tonight. All righty. We'll move forward. Public voice. I'm assuming we checked the list. There's no public voice,
There's no public voice.
which is just fine. And we're going to move on to the superintendent's report. Ah, I skipped. I was going to save you for last, Nick, but treasury report.
Good evening. I wasn't expecting CWEA not to be here. I think it's the first time in my tenure.
I'm almost wondering if the dates threw them off. So they probably are planning on being here next Monday and that, so, yeah. So that's I know, I thought about it when I didn't see them, so I will take that blame for a communication error there.
Good evening. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on financials. We just had the 5-year forecast update last month. I do want to highlight a couple things. One, we have a resolution of necessity and the action items later to renew our substitute levy. We originally passed this back in 2009, and this is now the 4th cycle. So we've had a 2-year cycle, 3-year, and this will be our 3rd 5-year cycle for this levy renewal. It does a couple things, earns $6.8 million, which is a big piece of our budget. We brought in $16.8 million in real estate taxes this year. 6.8 of that was due to the levy renewal on the substitute levy. It allows us to have the cash balance. Without the levy, we would definitely be spending in the deficit already. We would have obviously made changes to personnel and different things. So we would either be spending negatively or we wouldn't have the resources that we currently have in place. It would be a big impact to the forecast, which we showed last month. I think we were showing about a $40 million cash balance with the levy, and it was about a $20 million without the levy. So it's very significant to the budget. This will be the last 5-year cycle. In 29, we will look to take that to a 10-year renewal period at that point. And then also we get the homestead and rollback exemptions on that money. This levy was passed prior to 2012. And essentially anything passed over or after 2012, the taxpayers are responsible for 100% of that levy. This one is still, you get a 12.5% reduction factor where the state picks up a piece of the cost. So renewing this one is very impactful to the district and the taxpayer. It started off in the 14.8 mil range. It's a fixed levy, so as our values increase, that millage collected decreases. It's down around 10.5 this year. Franklin County is getting a reappraisal year this year, so I expect that to decline even more, probably down under 10 mils by the time this is actually levied for the next tax year. So that's about a $4.50 per $1,000 of tax savings for each home owner. So just want to kind of point that out. Cash balance remains strong. And I also want to highlight one little thing we've been keeping an eye on. Interest earnings did exceed the $1 million mark by quite a bit. We have one more month of June, so 1.5s may be in range. We'll see. Hopefully we'll have a good June. So interest rates continue to kind of stay afloat, but I don't expect that to continue forever. But we do have a long-term plan, so I would expect us to keep earning about $500,000 on the cash that we invest. Everything else is trending to the forecast. Like I said, we just updated it in May. So year over year, still looking at about 43.8 million in the cash right now, 32.4 million at the end of the year. Fiscal year will end on June 30th. So any questions specifically to this report or anything else? State budget wise, they've got to have a state budget done by July 1st. The Senate has made it entertaining, I would say. I did file a testimony for the last Senate hearing. They did keep 2022 base, but then they just tweaked line items within the formula to basically get to a number that they're comfortable with. So I'm not sure exactly what they had hearings at the end of last week, I'm pretty sure, but I haven't heard anything about that. I sent 2 different testimonies in for the House, 1 for the Senate. So, I mean, that's about all you can do as a public entity, is at least express your voice and have an opinion on what they should be doing. So we'll see. We'll see what the budget has in store. Either way, whether it's the Senate, the House version, or a combination, next year we're standing to receive a little bit more money in the formula. And then the year after will be dependent on student enrollment. With us going full day kindergarten, that will definitely help our numbers and will help the forecast for us at that point.
Is the opinion that you sent available? Is it available for us to review?
The state budget?
No, the opinion that you sent in to the House.
Your testimony.
Oh, yeah, I can send that to you. Yeah, I can send that to you.
I was gonna ask, do you think they
read it.
They did?
They have to
Okay,
read
I was
it,
gonna
yeah.
ask. Okay.
Yeah, we have to read every written testimony, and then you can testify in person. But yeah, somebody will read it if you send written testimony in.
Does this have to do with the House bill for the amount of money that they take out for charter schools from public schools? Or
No, I
is this
didn't
something
testify on that. It was just more about them keeping the 2020 base costs, implementing the formula, and fully funding the formula is what I testified on. I didn't touch the vouchers or anything like that.
Do we anticipate that bill is going to affect us for the number of kids that we pay for that don't go to Canal?
It's going to impact us indirectly, absolutely. I mean, the current poverty rate's 150%. I think every step of the way, the governor took it to 350 or 400. House raised it, and then the Senate raised it. Every step of the budget process, that poverty rate has been increased. The latest version of the Senate's 450% of poverty. So yes, it will have an indirect impact on us. The problem with the vouchers is when a student leaves and goes to a private school, we no longer have that data and that information, and it's kind of a hidden line item on the state budget. So you can get the totals, but it's hard to get the data for the actual student. Because a lot of those are going to be students that have already been attending private schools forever. I mean, they've never stepped foot in a public school district, and they're going to receive public dollars.
So would that, I know it's probably hard to throw a number out there, but would that put pretty much every district and, I'm sorry, every student in this district within that 450, what is it, 400% of the poverty level? That would wind up touching most of the kids in our school district.
About a household income, I think, of around 250,000. Yeah, our average household income is about 72,000 in Canal Winchester. So yeah, I'd say pretty close to 100%.
In Ohio students, it's 70+% of Ohio students.
They're forecasting an increase from last year for the increase of 450% of 1.5 billion in tuition vouchers. So when I say it indirectly impacts us, I think 20 years ago, the full $8 billion in state funding came to public schools. Now they're funding $9 billion, but $2 billion of it's going towards privates, charters, other people. So that's the indirect piece that I'm saying.
Lost $1 billion.
You could easily fully fund the formula, have the 22 base costs, do everything you need to do within the formula if it weren't for the allocation of the tuition and private dollars. So that's the indirect impact. I mean, they're only willing to give us X amount per student no matter what because they know other dollars are being allocated to other resources. So, any other questions? So we'll know. So once I get it and it's final, it'll go to the governor. The governor can veto just about any line item. He can make changes to it. Just about any change that he wants for the most part. And then it'll be signed into law by July 1st. So once we get it, I'll send it out from the final, and then we'll update the forecast accordingly based on what they approve for the biennium. Hopefully they put something in this budget bill to where it's more than 2 years. The last biennium was only a 2-year approval, so hopefully they commit to fully phasing this in for longer than the 2-year biennium. That's all I have for tonight.
Any other questions for Nick? Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's not supposed to be on.
Up here.
Good Lord.
It's a rotary phone up here.
It's on mute. Look at that. Interesting. Okay. I apologize for that.
She has a way of
You
getting
have her
through.
in case of emergency or something, so it rings through.
That could be.
She's a favorite.
Yeah. Superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. I'm going to keep it short and sweet tonight. I just want to take a moment and thank Kristen Ankrum for all of her work with the Business Advisory Council and the shift to bring that here to Canal Winchester. We are excited to make that change, and Monica, as you questioned, it is ambitious, but a lot of the work that she has been doing is already in the plan, which is why we wanted to shift it back to us, because the work we're doing is pretty extraordinary, and we've been told that we are doing work that's probably top in the state of Ohio. So hopefully we are recognized for that. And again, thank you for your work. I know that's her passion, is doing what she's doing. So any businesses that are listening and want to become involved, you may reach out to either myself or Kristen, and we will get you plugged in somewhere within the council. Indian Trail Edition is almost ready to break ground. I believe that we're scheduled to break ground in mid-July. We are excited to have a groundbreaking ceremony. That the information is still not finalized for that. We're working to find out when the equipment's going to get on scene. So once we have that finalized, we're going to we'll send it out, and hopefully everybody can make that celebrate. And again, that edition will allow us to offer full-day kindergarten in the 24-25 school year. So we're very excited about that. And last but not least, I'll just share that our teachers were chosen to be the grand marshals for the Canal Winchester Labor Day Parade this year. And we've been working with the Canal Winchester Labor Day Planning Committee. And we're excited to try to have the school represented in as much ways as it can, so getting clubs and groups and teams to participate, as well as our staff in that parade will be exciting and looking to make it a day for not only our staff, but our families as well. So. And that is all I have tonight.
All right, thank you. I do have a question for you, or at least a comment. Addressing the high school graduation ceremony, I think it went really well with the new organization that we did with having the students select their staff and teachers. Did you receive any feedback regarding that you'd like to share to the viewer?
Yeah, I did. I did hear that it was very well received from families and our students, and it just personalizes it a little bit more for them. So, yeah, I did not get any negative feedback, which is great, and only heard positive. So, yeah, that was great. Amy, thank you for planning that, and hopefully she's left a whole lot of notes because the expectation is now set moving forward for that. Yeah.
I did hear too that there's other schools that have done it that way too, and they like it that way too.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So thank you for
Awesome.
sharing.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, we're going to move on now to the district reports. Nick, would you like to, or I'm sorry, I need a motion? Or- Oh, okay, sorry. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the district report?
So on the curriculum and data report, we're moving from the A through F grading scale to the 1 to 5 grading scale. I did notice that I think it was the early literacy component. It seems to be our lowest. So how do we? What's in early literacy? What's in that component, and how do we impact that in the future?
So the early literacy component is K through 3 only, and it's our students that we put on a RIMP, that are identified on a RIMP through our diagnostic each fall. And it's not a school year fall to spring calculation. So it'd be the kids that we place as, that were on a RIMP which is a reading improvement monitoring plan, that we placed in fall of, this is 22, that came back to us in fall of 21, that came back to us in fall of 22. They want to see that number shrunk. Unfortunately, we did not, reduce that number enough from K to 1 and 1 to 2. And then in 3rd grade, though, those kids are measured from fall diagnostic to scoring proficient on the state exam. So we've got moving parts there of what's going on. So to make the result better is keep our effort. We've actually have increased the standard on ourselves because our current next year's 2nd graders have to hit proficiency on the state exam to be advanced to 4th grade as 3rd graders. We are not at that level right now. We are still at a 685? 685 is the cut score on the state exam in 3rd grade. In 2 years, it's 700. So we moved that 700 range down to our kindergarten 1 and 2 to prepare ourselves. And it just shows there's work to do. I met with Mrs. Cobb today, and there's a ton to celebrate, but we also know there's a bunch more work that needs to be done. So we're trying to gain on it.
To just reiterate, and this was something that as we were talking through, so we have made the decision to increase the number of students we put on the RIMP. So the state says kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, there's a minimum. We've increased it to proficiency because when they go into 3rd grade, to be able to go to 4th grade, they have to be proficient. So we've set proficient as our standard. So we're putting more kids on the RIMP, and this is measured on how many kids come off the RIMP by the next year. So we've talked, like we could play the game, but is that the right thing to do for the students? We don't believe so. We believe that setting it at proficient is what we should do. Other school districts put all their kids on a rent. That's also not, so it's something we're gonna watch. We think with,
There's,
yeah.
as with the budget bill, there's language in there, it could all go away come June 30th, July 1. But we're,
Third grade guarantee, they're talking about getting rid of. and that just
Possibly.
goes out the window.
possibly, but we're business as usual moving forward. Yes?
Is there any correlation to the kids that are not meeting the guidelines and income and poverty levels? Do we know that data?
We can break it down to that level. The biggest impact right now from kindergarten to first is, this is just fresh because Mrs. Cobb and I met today at 1 o'clock on this. Our kindergarten to 1 numbers, I forget the exact amount, but the difference in achievement was 30 percentiles. Basically, kids that were with us in kindergarten and the chunk of kids that join us in first grade. And we were looking at ethnicity subgroups through that, and it's significant, those kids that's been with us for a longer period of time versus the ones just joining us. I don't know off the top of my head what the economically disadvantaged is, but there is a correlation to all that. But we also have students that are flagged with that's doing quite well. So there's a number of things.
I would like to see the data. I don't know when I could get with you to see that kind of data. My concern is because I've met with United Way, and I know that when I met with them, our district met the guidelines. But if we're changing the guidelines and we're deciding that we're going to do things differently, maybe the other districts have already changed the guidelines, and that's why they fell into the category where they're getting assistance from groups like United Way to help with kids during the summer so that they don't just sit at home for 3 months and not have any kind of curriculum. And that's where I think we might be able to improve when you have 30% of our kids that may not be getting any type of summer programming to help them with reading and math during the summer, and then they come back and they're no further along than they were, or they've lost what they didn't retain what they already learned.
There's a summer slide there, you're right. But on the positive, though, the early literacy, yes, we did drop to 2. Winchester Trail did get a 3, which is meeting expectation because the state test and moving the kids to proficient. It is a building block in the sense of kindergarten to 1 to 2 to foundation. We all want to go faster, but there is a lot to celebrate there.
So what kind of impact do you think we'll see when we go to full-day kindergarten and we have the kids that may go somewhere else for kindergarten because somewhere else offers full-day, and now we have those kids in our school district?
It's only going to benefit us. It really is. It's going to benefit us, and it's going to have our kids that learn our procedures from our teachers and our curriculum. It's going to move the needle. It really is with all students. It's just going to be a benefit.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
And anytime there is a ton of data out there, and there's a lot of things that are going well, we just want it to always be, we're our own worst critics when it comes down to it. So, thank you.
And that data is still it will continue to be changed. So can you speak on that?
Yes, so we actually started off better than what I'm reporting here. And then every week it kind of gets updated, and the way it gets updated is we have students in the district that were supposed to take the test but didn't for whatever reason, so we have to give them a code. We have districts that attend other educational placements, but they come back to count on us. So all that is starting to come in, and right now we are still, our gap closing, we're still 5 stars across the board. But things have started to change a little bit. And the state numbers, there's a state average in there that's also started to kind of wiggle up and down as all the data starts to keep coming in. Because districts that gave the exam as paper pencil, their results are not in there yet. So it all come together, and we'll be waiting till late August before we know exactly where we stand.
Any other questions on district reports?
I just have a quick comment. I noticed in the reports that there were several staff members who reached milestones in their years of service and dedication to the district. Some were at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and a remarkable 25 years. So I just want to send congratulations out to those staff members. Because what you do is very hard. You know, it's rewarding, but it's challenging as well. And we recognize you for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are no further questions on the building reports, we'll move into the consent agenda. And I'm going to need a motion on the consent agenda.
Second.
Mr. Butler and Ms. Talley. Kaya?
Thank you.
Yes.
I will, this is a long report, lots of information. I'm going to go through it. It will not take as long as the policy did last meeting. But we do have a lot of information. So first is the minutes from the May 15th meeting. Moving on to number 3, we do have 2 donations. One is $1,000 to the Drug Free Club from the Brock Strong Foundation, and we have $500 to the high school from C3 Church, and we want to thank both of those organizations for their donations. Number 4, administrative personnel. We do have a resignation from Amy Warren as high school principal. She has accepted a position at Northridge as their director of curriculum, so we want to thank her and wish her well. She will remain with us through the summer still for a little more time. So as we move forward in finding her replacement. We also have an employment bridge contract for Megan Anthony. Last month, you approved her from going from a classified schedule to the administrative schedule. Classified schedules go from July 1 through June 30th, so there's a month gap in there. Administrative contracts start in August. So they're still 12-month contracts. It's just one goes from July 1 through June 30th, and then the administrative go from August 1 through July. So there's the month gap, which this just bridges that. Moving on to number 5 is our certified personnel. We have a lot of information in here. We have our resignations. We do have a leave of absence request from a teacher. And then we have our teacher recommendations. We do have 4 recommendations for our teachers coming in that we'll be hiring for next school year. We have academic stipends for the 23-24 school year. So these are positions that would be filled academically. And then you'll notice that we go into, that would be it. So we have our academic stipends. And that is all for our certified. We did go into our classified. We have resignations as well. I do want to highlight that Kim Worthman has resigned for the purpose of retirement. She currently serves as our athletic director secretary. So she will be retiring effective January 31st. So we'll work with her and look at when we need to post that position for a replacement. We just want to thank her for her years of service to the district as well. We have 2 leave of absence requests and our classified recommendations and our substitute classified recommendations. Moving on to number 7, we have our supplemental personnel. We start off first with our athletic supplementals. Those are for the fall season. We then go into our academic supplementals and our volunteers for our athletics. After that, you'll see an athletic stipend for this school year, 22-23. That would be for Taylored Leonard with the instrumental music at the middle school. And that was a position that he did fill. We just did not approve it. So that's why you see it for the 22-23 school year. And then we move into the stipends for our faculty managers. Number 8 are our school health services standing orders. So our district works with Dr. Stacy Scudder, and she prepares for us our standing orders. This is something we don't typically approve every year. It's usually on an every 2 to 3 year cycle, but this gives us the ability to give out Advil to students when they come to the clinic if they have the correct paperwork. So. Number 9, we do have a new student activity charter for the softball boosters. We do have several booster clubs within the athletic department that are housed within the same through a new student activity charter. Number 10, we have an overnight field trip request for Stacy Fletcher, who oversees our future health professionals. And she is taking a group of students to Dallas, Texas for the HOSA International Leadership Conference. And that would be June 21st through the 24th. And then I'm going to pass on to Nick.
Amended appropriations, law says that you cannot appropriate more than your estimated resources, and then you cannot spend more than your appropriations. So this document just amends those to make sure we meet the legal standards. So we're not expending more than we appropriated from a fund level. Number 12 is just temporary appropriations that gets us started effective July 1 through the 24 school year. Gives us authority to spend prior to have permanent appropriations that will be approved by October 1st. And the pay to participate fees for 23-24 fiscal year, these are unchanged from the prior year. You see high school $150, middle school $100.
Those are capped per family, correct?
Per sport.
Yeah, if they play 2, the thirds.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there a family cap on that? So if parents have 4 kids and they all participate in sports, then they're paying $600 pay to participate?
And they're all running track.
Who can change that? Is it the athletic director, or who makes that change?
Currently, the athletic fees go directly back to the athletic department, so that's their way of, really it's part of their budget, and how the money is spent back for the athletes, to play. So we have just over the years, and Nick, you can help me with numbers, but in the time I've been here, the fees were 300?
They're 300 what I got here,
And 150 or even
16.
yeah, and we have dropped them down to 150 and 100, so we feel like the reduction that we've made to our athletic fees, even if you compare them to other local high schools, we're in that ballpark.
Well,
I would like to know, and maybe before I want to, I don't know, approve this, or am I approving this tonight? Is that what we're asking for, an approval on this?
It's within the consent agenda, yes.
So my question is, how much is collected, what does it go towards, and what isn't covered? How much are they getting, and how many students aren't able, we don't know this yet, but how many students aren't able to participate? And I bring this up because I had 3 kids in school at one time, all playing sports, and that was when it was $300 apiece. While I financially could afford it, there was a lot of other things I could have done with that money. So I just looked at the kids who couldn't afford it. And I think that I was told that the money was going towards the school buses necessary to transport the kids. And in 1 year, I saw one single student get on a school bus for swimming, and a bus was paid for to take one child to a swimming meet. So I would like to know how the money is being used and what it is actually used for, and if the school is losing any money, or if we're covering whatever expense that money's supposed to cover. And how can we get that information?
So my understanding is when it went from 300 down to 150, it's not just we
Oh, I know it
we
went up.
cut that, the board is subsidizing those funds.
Right.
So if we cut it more, the board would be paying more to subsidize that.
Well, that's what I want to know is what is that number? What is the board subsidizing and how much are we pulling in with the fees to cover when you have a family who has more than 2 kids playing sports? Is there anything we can do to alleviate some of the pressure on those so that it's not as costly because they have one more kid? Because I would venture to say, we don't estimate who's actually going to play by knowing the family members, because we don't always know who all's even going to play a sport. And if you've got a kid who plays football and basketball, they're never going to see something free because that's the only 2 things they play, so they're never going to run track because that's not what they do. So we're not really giving them anything either. We're not saying 2 sports, the third one's free, because they've never played a third one. That's the only 2 they play. So I'm just wanting to know, what is the cost to the district, and how much what part of the bill are we footing? Because we may be footing 3/4 of the bill. I don't know. That's what I'd like to know.
We receive $175,000, 160 of it gets allocated to the athletic budget, 15,000 goes to the band, so they can buy new equipment. The school board pays anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million for coaches, transportation to events, and all of those types of costs. The $160,000 that goes into the athletic fund really helps keep us from subsidizing general fund dollars to cover extracurricular activities. It also helps with the boosters to where they don't have to raise enough money and do fundraisers and all those types of things. Because if your athletic department has a healthy budget, they're able to buy the supplies they need, pay for the officials, which are increasing every year, uniforms, tape, everything that you need. I mean, football helmets, things like that. Certain sports are more expensive. We all know that football is probably the most expensive because you have more equipment. Lacrosse is up there when you start buying the sticks and the pads and things needed for that. So when you're funding a bunch of different sports, it really helps with their budget. We also call on for the athletic department to assist in different facility projects. They purchased the scoreboards. We weren't going to do that with general fund or permanent improvement because we had scoreboards that were working. So if they wanted the kind of more than what was needed, then we're going to task the boosters and the athletic fund to kind of get the extra kind of luxury type items if that's what they want. If they want to purchase uniforms every year, we're going to call on the boosters in the athletic program to purchase those uniforms every year. So it kind of elongates all kinds of different things. But really with the boosters, if you cut out the $160,000 from the budget, you're going to need more support from your booster programs. They're going to have to do more fundraisers. They're going to have to do more things to raise that money to support our athletic extracurricular activities.
And you realize I'm not saying to cut anything.
Yeah.
What I'm asking for is, what is the budget? How much of the money is going to, what is it going towards? What are we getting from things like ticket sales? And I understand boosters. I was in boosters. I think boosters should do the work to help, provide those sorts of things to the teams. But what I'm looking for is not to reduce the per student cost. I'm looking to revisit the per family cost. We know how many families we have in the district, and I'm just looking at what can we do to reduce the per family cost.
Okay. Yeah, we can have the
I don't know
athletic
if we can
director
look at that.
look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that should be relatively easy for the athletic department to look
Yeah,
at, just see
for
how
sure.
many students, and then see, if capping a family, either an annual or maybe a semester you know, per season, put a family cap in and see if that would affect.
Yeah, I think we can definitely look at that.
And it might, in the end, it might improve student participation in athletics if students participate in more athletics, maybe.
I'm fairly confident Pat's got all that
Yeah.
dialed in.
Yeah, I
and
think we've got
he's-
participation numbers. I think they've been up every year since I've been here.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that these are for extracurricular. It's not 100% the board's responsibility to cover those costs. We have eliminated certain fees that impacts every student when it comes to student fees, and those types of things. We pretty much waived and eliminated all of those types of things to help alleviate the stress on families.
I think we opted to do the student fees because it did affect
Yes.
every student rather than the sporting electives.
We still reduced these,
We
though,
did,
too, at
yes,
the
but
same
not
time.
eliminated them.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would just say is that a student who participates in athletics is less likely to do other things outside of the school, and they're more likely to have that structure around them, have that coaching around them, maybe have even a male figure around them that they might not have at home. Not only that, I've talked to other school districts who actually base their pay-to-play fees off of the family's needs. So I'm not asking to eliminate them or to even put it on whether or not if a student can't afford lunch, how do we expect them to pay for an athletic event? And I know that it is extracurricular, but if they're not doing athletics, then it's time that they have on their hands to do what? So I would rather see a student participating in athletics with something to do and have some sort of structure after they get out of school. And we don't know what kids we're leaving out of the equation that may bring us a state championship. We don't know. The school gets extra things, I'm sure, when we have a winning team. So if we're losing out on some opportunities because a child can't pay to play, I would just like to see if there's something we can do as a school board and as a school district to consider the family as a whole and not just per student as a starting point.
Yeah, we'll get information. I do just want to make one mention because I think the comment about swimming and one kid going on a bus, swimming is not a school sport. So if that happened, that's on the club making that decision. We do not, and we haven't since I've been here.
That was back in 2000, I think, like 11 or 12. It's been a while.
Yeah, so,
But I
but,
know that it
yeah.
happens.
That's a club
Swimming
sport.
is a club sport, so if that's happening, it's not through the school district on that, so. But we will get that information to you, and then we can go from there.
So Nick, when does this have to be approved? Because it sounds like, do we need to pull this from the voting for the consent agenda? Since Dave and Vanjie want to
I mean, I don't think the
look at
dollar
this?
amount's gonna change. Some procedures around the dollar amount could change. I mean, right now, we don't have the buy two sports, get one free in there. I think that's just kind of part of the athletic department's guidelines. So we'll just have the new athletic director and Pat work together and see if what kind of data shows, and they can put that in their guidelines that there's a cap of X amount of dollars per family in the future.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
know. I wanted you guys to feel comfortable in voting it, or do we remove it? But I know there's a time frame that we need to
I'm comfortable with it as is. I would like to get some data.
move forward to
Yeah.
get, okay. I
Sounds
just want
like
to
we
make sure you guys
Need
were,
a short one-page document that kind of summarizes some of those things. Maybe we need to bring in you pay for two sports, the third one's at no cost. I'm sure the athletic department has it, but maybe a board approval for some of those things would be beneficial.
And I think it would be beneficial to ask the question and get the data. If you could play, is pay to play a reason why you're not playing? I mean, we don't even know this information, so I would like to know what the money's going to and how many families would be affected if we change that part of it. And as Dave said, I'm okay with voting the way it is on the consent agenda. I would just like, I've been asking this question for a few years now. I've never gotten the answer from Pat, exactly what I'm asking for. And I would like to know what the data is on the students that don't play, that would play if they could, can't afford it, or the students who are maxed out because it's per student, not per family. So if there's a way for us to collect that data or to make some assumptions about that data, I would like to see that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the family max is easy. I mean, it would have little impact on the budgets, and it would have a great impact on the families. So, I mean, so it'd be an easy win for everybody.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the pay to participate fees? I got a contract for Meta Solutions to provide technology support. They've been our ITC for a long time. I have more private tuition contracts to educate students attending Learning Spectrum and Boundless for the 2023-2024 school year. Contract with Madison Township for the school resource officer. This is going to be a 3-year agreement. Ms. Hunt worked mostly on the agreement and terms with them on this. If you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, so they are SROs, more schools are hiring SROs, and they are having to hire new officers to replace those who are going from being a non-SRO into the SRO world. So they'd asked if we could go from a 1-year to a 3-year, because that way their commitment in hiring makes sense to them as well. So that's what that looks like. We are staying at the 70% for reimbursement. We were at 50-some% last year, but if you remember, it was prorated because we didn't have Madison Township SRO on board until October. And the price does increase a little bit. They had looked at throwing in costs for the whole 70% of the cost that they envisioned. So that's what that contract is.
I was talking to Trustee Jarvis, and he was telling me that Madison Township actually loses money by sending us RSO, so they're making a big commitment. I think they wind up losing about $30,000 per every, not $30,000, but there's money that costs the township. So we really appreciate them being able to step up and get us a resource officers, because I know we struggle finding them. So I was talking to Bruce, and he was telling me that there is some cost to the township, but they're willing to do it because they know the commitment. It looks like Ropeport's picking up another RSO, so we're really thankful that they were able to step up, and 3-year commitment, that's awesome for us because it locks us in and getting a good person in for a while, so that's good news.
And I think that the 30,000 that they mentioned is the increase. Not all of it is coming to us, but we definitely will see an increase for certain things.
Yeah, because they shouldn't really see any costs. I mean, the way it works is they're paying the police officer, and then we're getting 70% of it because they're here 178 days, and the other
Well, he was saying there was some
remaining
cost
portion.
associated for them as a township, so he was saying that it helps us. It helps. I appreciated them stepping up because I didn't realize it cost them any money, so it helps out a lot. So that's awesome.
will cost them money for the extra
Yep.
90 days that they're back into the workforce, because they're only with the school for 178 of their 260-day contract. So that's where their 30% comes from. So they're still paying for the 90-some days that they're being a Madison Township employee.
Their additional cost, what they're referring to is the car, so the cruiser. They have to buy that, they have to outfit it with the communication tools that they would need, uniforms. I mean, we're talking, that's what they're talking about, so.
And they were really supportive, so I was
Yeah.
just really happy that they were willing to step up. And it looks like a 3-year contract, so now we can lock in as
Yes.
certainty with the
Yeah.
resource officer, so that's awesome.
Yep.
Yep,
So
this is good.
Thank you. And then we move on to number 17, the last part of the consent agenda is the handbooks for the 23-24 school year. If you do click on those through board docs, you can see the markups, so you can see the strike-throughs and the ads there. That's all for the consent agenda.
Any further questions? Okay. Nick, will you please call roll on the consent agenda?
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Ms.
Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. We're going to go on to action items. Action item number 1 is a resolution of necessity. I need a motion. I'll make a motion. Need a second.
Yes.
Ms. Barnes? And is this Nick or
Yeah,
Kaya?
so as discussed earlier, this is the resolution of necessity for the substitution of a substitute tax levy. Say that 10 times fast. It will be on the ballot November 7th. This is step 1. We pass this. We send this to the county auditor. They certify the dollar amount. And then next month, we will approve a resolution to proceed with the substitute tax levy. And then we will file that with the Board of Elections by the August deadline, and that will put us on the ballot for November 7th, 2023.
Just to be clear, this is a renewal. This is not new money. This is
Renewal, correct.
All right, so I know there's.
It will not be termed that way. They will not let us
Change the verbiage on
put
it.
the verbiage on the resolution as a renewal, but it is technically a renewal. It is no new money, we should say.
Are we creating any kind of yard signs that says that from the school district to post, put around the district?
We are not allowed to do that as the Board of Education or the school district. We are not, we can't,
Well,
it
for our
is,
for-
I mean, they have been very clear, some changes have come into place, and the auditor,
We are fact-based only.
yes. So it's even to a point that after the fact, we're not allowed to say thank you when it's passed. It is, so we will, our levy chair, he will have to work with the group to, she will have to work to, yeah. I don't know that, do we have anybody lined up yet? No, we have a treasurer, so, yeah.
Any other questions? Nick?
Mr. Krueger?
Oh,
Wait,
nope,
I'm sorry.
yep.
I have a question. So we're doing a 5-year renewal, or 5-year substitute
Yep.
levy of the substitution. So in 4 years, we're gonna be kind of in the exact same boat that we're in now, where we're trying to get the what's our plan going forward? Because,
We're going to do a 10-year
okay,
in 2029, and then probably continue the 10-year. I don't, continuing would be great, but but I'm not sure how much support we would get for continuing. And is it worth the risk to go continuing? I was told we heard in 2009, and then we heard it again in 11 and 14, that our community likes the checks and balances piece
okay.
of this to come back. I think 5 years is probably too short, but I think at this point, keeping it at 5 for one more cycle and then taking it to 10 years in 2029 will give us a wider range to be able to do some different things at that point.
Okay. Any reason why we wouldn't go to a 10 on this one?
Yes, it was, all had to come to do with the levy cycle that we shared back in November. So we had debt expiring in 2026, and then we had debt expiring in 2033 and 2034. So if we would have done a 10-year this period, then we would have been right up against expiring debt. And if we need new money in 2033, 34 area, we would have been competing against ourselves with this existing levy. So going a 5-year to 29 and then a 10-year gets us to the 2029 to 2039, which gives us 10 years. In the middle of that, we've got debt expiring. And if there's a need for new money, we can kind of use the expiring debt to levy operating expenses and not increase taxes at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes. Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Action item number 2 is GMP amendment number 2. I need a motion,
So moved.
and I'll second.
So this is the second amendment to the CMR agreement. We did the first one back in April. We're gonna have more of these. These are essentially, GMP stands for Guaranteed Max Price. So they're taking each of these things out to bid and locking them in the prices for the site work and utilities, cast-in-place concrete, structural precast concrete, and the rest of that list. And then we'll have CMR amendment number 3 coming once other packages go out to bid. We'll probably only have a couple more since we're looking to break ground mid-July, and we need most of these packages out to bid. So this is a good thing. Once we go out to GMP, then we know it kind of locks in place on all these items for our budget. Because right now, we're still just kind of guessing at the budget on talking to vendors and different things. This will be an official bid process, and the board's authorizing that they go out and bid these to lock in the guaranteed max price.
Any questions for Nick? Please call roll.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Tally?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Action item number 3, the Employment Administrative Personnel, Joseph Robert Palauskas.
Close.
Good. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
I'm happy to recommend Mr. Rob Pulaskis as high school assistant principal. I'm going to call Mr. P moving forward.
I think I will too.
Yeah, there you go. Mr. P is currently the director at the Focus Learning Academy Southeast. And throughout the interview process, it was apparent that he has a passion for supporting all learners, and he has a natural rapport with students, staff. I think he's going to be an excellent addition to our high school team.
Any questions on Mr. P? Mr. Roberts, please call roll.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Tally?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. K?
Yes.
Sorry.
Action item number 4, policy final reading.
Yes. Sorry. So before I begin, you got to get a first and a second. My bad.
Yeah, it was my bad. I'll motion. I need a second.
Second.
Ms. Tally?
So
Let's go.
last month at the board meeting, we had pretty good conversation surrounding one policy specifically, which was regarding the expulsion appeals. And I have removed that from the agenda for us so that we can have further conversations before voting on that. So the policies that are listed here, other than that, are the other policies that we did review at last meeting. And I will wait if you have questions or if you're ready for approval. I know we spent a lot of time last month reviewing.
Any questions for Ms. Hunt? Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Ms. Tally?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
So one other question I believe that we wanted, and I don't know if this is the right time, but we're going to bring it up, regarding policy is you all had a conversation, I think maybe it was in policy when we discussed payment for meetings, and I didn't know if we're going into executive session tonight to do that? Okay.
We are.
It is next, so that would be where we're going next. Thank you.
So I need a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Mr. George
Second.
and Ms. Barnes. Nick, please call roll.
George,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. Krueger,
Yes.
Ms. Tally.
Yes.
So we will be moving in executive session. There will be no outcome voting resolution coming out of it. So we will adjourn the public meeting as of 8:15. But I believe I'm going to need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a wonderful summer.